I'm Ernie Humphrey, Educational Programs Leader for Performative, the largest online community for corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related professionals. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's webinar, The Keys to a Fast and Accurate Financial Close. Enterprises have been closing the books since the dawn of the stock market. However, even after all this time, it remains a process filled with variability, stress, and controlled chaos. Today, our speakers will discuss specific best practices that drive close optimization, increase speed and accuracy, and offer actionable advice relative to how technology, in conjunction with process, can help you deliver a best-in-class financial close at your company. I would like to thank SAP, whose commitment to thought leadership helps us make this webinar possible and delivered at no cost. A quick note of today's agenda. First, we'll hear a joint presentation for our featured speakers. Then we'll move to the interactive Q&A session, where we will spend the remainder of our hour. We would like this to be an interactive experience for you, so if you have any questions at any time for our speakers, please go to the questions area in your GoToWebinar control panel and send us your questions. A few logistical notes about the webinar today. Links to today's presentation video recording will be sent out to all attendees in 24 hours of the event. Those who would like CPE credits through NSBA will need to answer all polling questions during the event and should have pre-registered for CPE credit. For any questions on CPE credits, please send an email to cpe@performative.com. Again, we encourage you to ask questions on today's topic via the questions box in your GoToWebinar control panel at any time during the webinar. Finally, you'll be asked to take a short survey today regarding the webinar. We really appreciate your feedback regarding our event today. We always strive to improve the ROI for our attendees' valuable time. Quick word about Performative. Performative is the largest online community resource for senior-level corporate finance, accounting, treasury, and related leaders. Performative connects corporate finance leaders to provide instant advice and insights on the tough financial and strategic challenges they face every day. It's now my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. Elizabeth Milne, Financial Consolidation Solutions Advocate, SAP. Elizabeth has over 15 years of experience improving the software solutions for multinational, multi-billion-dollar organizations. Her finance career began working at Walt Disney, then Warner Brothers in the areas of consolidation, budgeting, and financial reporting. She subsequently moved to the software industry in sales positions, including implementation consultant and manager, account executive, pre-sales consultant, and working as part of the solutions management team at SAP Business Object and Cursus. In 2008, she graduated with an executive MBA from Northwestern University's Kellogg Graduate School of Management. Our other featured speaker today is Gabe Zubizarreta. Gabe is CEO and founding principal at Silicon Valley Accountants. He is a CPA with 10 years experience with PwC, has held various controller positions, and led several merger integration projects. He has designed a proven financial effectiveness network based on a balanced approach of training, leadership, process improvement, and systems optimization, which delivers continuous improvement based on results to optimize financial process. With that, it is my distinct pleasure to hand the floor over to Gabe. Please take it away. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ernie. Thank you very much for that introduction. Elizabeth, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing, Gabe?
Great. So we want to get started today. We have a full agenda. This presentation is kind of coming to you from a bunch of different perspectives. Elizabeth and I first met at Sapphire last year. We had a lot of great conversations on the accounting close, and we have put together a presentation that comes from both the perspective of a consulting firm like my own that specializes in accounting and finance and close optimization, and SAP's perspective, a very large, world-renowned, obviously one of the best system companies out there. And it was interesting to us how our perspectives sort of came together. So we put together a presentation that sort of combines our perspectives. So moving right along and starting at the beginning of the story is the accounting close and financial reporting has been a challenge, as Ernie had alluded to, for quite a while. Frankly, when ERP was introduced, they managed to make things so much faster on the automated side that it increased the challenge for accounting close. Longer than I've been in accounting. I think Columbus was probably trying to close the books as he came across. Forever, since Sarbanes-Oxley, again, more pressure on the close when that came in. All of the above, none of the above. It's a challenge, it's been a challenge, and it continues to persist being a challenge. So everybody goes, well, it's just the close. It's kind of like saying it's just a Rubik's Cube, right? All the pieces are there, and it's a puzzle that we've got to get to combine and put together, but everybody seems to have a different one. I was actually quite surprised to see just how many Rubik's Cubes there were, but everybody has their own close and their own unique challenges. So as we look at this, we say, well, what are the challenges that are sort of contributing to this? What are the things that keep coming up? The last years, the last several years, we've had difficult business and economic times, and that's made it challenging. Sarbanes-Oxley, model audit rules, certain things on compliance. I don't know how many of you have experienced, everyone who's public has probably experienced their auditors this year talking about the PCAOB and inequality of review and a bunch of other issues. The audit committees, fraud. Anybody commits a good fraud, we all end up paying. We all have to do more diligence. Technology. Elizabeth, you're all about technology. Are we there? Are we done with technology, or is technology going to keep presenting more newer and more interesting challenges as we go forward?
No, for sure technology is changing. I mean, as we've seen over the past 5 years, over the past 20 years, technology has been changing. So that's the fun part about the close, is that even though it's been around forever and the objective is still the same in order to report your financial results, you have all of these things that are on here, including technology, not only technology, but including technology that's going to throw the cogs in the wheel. So it's like, well, why haven't you figured out this accounting and financial close thing so far? And the reasons are, as is presented on this slide, is that it's the constant change within the closing process that definitely makes the business environment challenges that you're presenting here.
So our goal is simple. We just have to get everything in the right place at the right time, even though it's changing every month, just like that.
Simple. Simple.
So then we go here and we take a look, and this is an SAP slide. And this is an SAP slide lining things up. It kind of looks like a nicely organized cube. To the left-hand side, we've got the general ledger and the subledgers. And then we start that entity close, corporate close, reporting and disclosure, and along the bottom, process controls, governance, close management. But this is like the entire challenge. But as we go through, we're going to see that there's a lot of issues on each side of this. So if we look at that speed of change, back in 1900, you could say that things were going 10 miles an hour. As you go forward in time, you could agree that change had been increasing and increasing and increasing. Well, what's important for us is what's going to happen in the next 30 years. So do we see change slowing down? We've hit 55, we're not going to increase anymore, or do we think that it's going to get faster? Elizabeth, you've been involved in this long enough. Where do you see things going in terms of changes? Is the world slowing down, or?
I'm thinking the world's speeding up. I think it's faster, Gabe.
Yep, faster and faster. It just seems to be. If it's one thing you can count on with change, is that it's going to be faster and it's going to come from more diverse areas. So what is the world saying out there? Right? We've got people saying stuff like today's CFO and finance organizations need to execute on a broad range of responsibilities, their traditional roles, but also finance function effectiveness, information quality, consistency, finance talent management. We see people turning over faster and faster, internal controls, corporate governance, business performance management, and if that's not enough, and others. Right? So we're being asked to do a lot. Here's another one. Today's CFO may be increasingly responsible not just for releasing information, but timely, practical, underlying drivers, internal audiences, also risk analysis, performance analytics, anticipate challenges the business could face. So we got to be looking forward and looking at all this. Then they say a common obstacle is the finance team sets the wrong priorities. Them's fighting words, right? Who could possibly be saying finance team sets the wrong priorities? Surely nobody who anybody's paying attention to, right? These are the thought leaders in our industry saying, hey, we got to attack this from a different way. In the way that you could look at it as a picture, in the past we were told number crunchers, bean counters, historically focused, too busy, internal controls. What do they want? They want us an expanding role, business advisors, value-added internal consultants, seat at the table. And that sounds good, and they say, well, that could require a transition. And then they've come up with other words like a transformation. And is that really what they want? No. They'd also like you to do both of them. And oh, by the way, once you're at it, could you automate the past? Elizabeth, small companies, big companies, do you see them all facing this challenge?
I do. I think that the level of technology that you put in there is going to be where it's going to matter to some extent, because if you're a smaller company, you're not necessarily going to go in and automate everything, because there's certain things like Excel that you can use to leverage. Now, that being said, you know, Excel is never going to go away, and so you need to, as an organization, small or large, figure out where your threshold of tolerance is and where the value add is in order to automate the different areas.
Absolutely. And so what are the issues we're trying to address to solve this puzzle? We dig down a little deeper and we go, okay, well, let's look at the issues. And again, back to an SAP slide. look at how we go when we look at each one of those areas. We have a different set of issues. Now, some of them overlap, and some of them are they're enumerated, and you could even add some more issues there. But in every set of this, we have different issues to address. So it's not like it's a simple problem. It's not like you don't have different things. And for every company, I think one of our messages to myself and Elizabeth is that every company has a unique set of challenges that they're trying to deal with. And so it's important to get in there and take a look at it and have somebody who understands it help you take a look at it to try and sort of decode what's going on in your close. Elizabeth, did you have some comments on this one?
Yeah, I think that as you can see, as you mentioned, the way that there are a number of things that are repeated across these line up right to that chevron slide that we had on beforehand, that there's different slices to the whole close process, that when you start and when you finish isn't always the same for everybody. So how you count that and then how you increase your efficiency, your speed, and control is going to be different for you. And that's why we've laid it out. As mentioned, this is an SAP slide that we use to really communicate the challenges around the close process. So when you're looking at this slide, one of the things you need to think here is that where are my different pain points and what calls out to me? And it's not a one-size-fits-all type of a solution. And so this is meant to set up to make you think and think about, okay, well, where are my pain points? Where are the areas where I can improve on?
So we look at it, we like this, and we also look at it another way. We look at it as in effectiveness is the product of people times processes times systems. So now we got to see where all that comes together, because your close really comes together where your systems meet your processes and they meet your people. And so the way we do this and the way we look at it to a certain extent is we look at it and say, okay, where are the limiting factors? Because in the close, getting 95% done, it's still an F. You got to get it all done. You got to get it all right. You got to get it all on time. So you need a high effectiveness in this. So you can have the best systems in the world, but if your processes are not very adaptive and your people are working in silos, you're probably going to have some cracks you're going to fall through. From a qualitative way, we look at it as that pipe flow diagram. From a quantitative way, we've come up with a scale that goes from 0 to 2. Now, 2 is the highest rating, so imagine you have the best systems, the highest rating in your systems, but your people were in silos and your processes were not very adaptive. The product of that actually turns out to be very low because you've put a lot of limitations on it. Another way of showing this is saying even if you had the best systems and the best people. So the scale goes from 0 to 8 because 2 times 2 times 2 would be 8 is the maximum score. But it's interesting to see what happens when you have bottlenecks, because you can have quantitatively the best systems, the best people, but then put in a restrictive bottleneck and look at the score. You're spending a lot of effort doing the best in certain areas, but if you're really falling behind in other areas, it is the theory of limiting constraints, and that tends to affect. On an 8-point scale, you're at 1.6. So what's the answer? The answer is most of us have already put a lot of money into systems, the big systems. And now we need to round out. We need to find the bottlenecks in the systems. We need to find the bottlenecks in the processes. We need to find the bottlenecks in the people and just get a more balanced approach to this. And when we get that more balanced approach and take out those bottlenecks, all of a sudden our overall score goes up. And it goes up pretty dramatically. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting things here as well, too, is to tie this into the polling question that we just looked at, right, is that we had like 53% said that it was staffing and turnover issues. So I think that aligns perfectly into what you've got going on here, is that you've got the people aspect, but if you have your processes and systems in better shape and higher scoring there, then you'll be able to, when you have that turnover, have it be not as much of an issue as it might have been otherwise if you didn't have the process and the systems. But saying all that, that's all turning that Rubik's Cube in too many different directions, right? So it's definitely, you have to think through it all to see how that they're all interrelated.
Absolutely. They're all interrelated, and you got to come up with a way of taking a look at. Again, now this is intended, I put this slide up because I think if I were to go to most people and say, how many systems do we think SAP has pointed at the accounting close? I'm not even sure most people could tell us all the different solutions that have been there. And this isn't to promote any particular solution. It is to show you that to solve this, not the first column where you have the GL and the subledgers, but everything to the right of that. And SAP has included even some systems that aren't theirs in this, in mapping out sort of a suite of solutions. So they have a very comprehensive suite, But you could do this with an Oracle stack. You could do this with even third-party stacks or a combination. Many companies have got combinations. But notice there's no one magic silver bullet here. It is some combination of technology that comes together to address your issue. And it's not one piece or two pieces. It's a combination of them, and again, that fit your needs. So I'm not sure that most people would have known that there's 10 different solutions here from SAP, a couple third-party ones, and that's just a sample set. So there's a lot of challenge here. There's a lot of solutions that have been pointed towards this. We're not saying get all of them. We're saying understand which ones are key to taking the bottlenecks out of your process. So we're not promoting anything in particular, just showing the diversity that's out there and what exists. So this brings us to where a lot of people say, well, so what is the key ingredient? Or what are the key ingredients? Right? There are key ingredients. There are things that are making your bottlenecks. The interesting part with that is when we look at effectiveness drivers, we say those key ingredients could be anywhere, and what they're going to try and do is take your people, your processes, and your systems from initial, more manualized or manual interconnects and silos. If that's where your bottlenecks are, they're going to try and take them to highly synergized teams, optimized process, and effectively integrated systems. What does that mean? That means there's a very, very large menu of items that, again, you need to pick out where your bottlenecks are, where your greatest returns are, and where your greatest ROI is. You probably have a lot of the bigger pieces in place. You have a lot of the infrastructure in place. You have a lot of other stuff. You need to figure out those places to fill those cracks. You need to figure out those places to really, release what I call release the ROI of your ERP. You've invested a lot in your ERP system. There's some finishing touches that really kind of add the frosting to all of this, along your people, along your processes, and along your systems. So it's all of this working together. What we want to help you do is figure out how to strengthen the chain, not just work on one link or another link and et cetera, but how to really strengthen the chain all the way through. People, process, and systems all working well together. So many times people come back to me then and say, well, what's the ROI on all this? It's tough economic times. What's the ROI, and et cetera. This was a presentation I worked on with APQC. This was done at the CFO.com conference in San Francisco, I think in about June of last year. It's myself and a research fellow named Mary Driscoll. And these are some of her slides. They're the APQC slides that she so generously let us borrow. First, we talked to people, and they did the research ahead of time. What are you looking for, efficiency or effectiveness? Right? And as we can see, most people want both efficiency and effectiveness. I get it, efficiency and effectiveness. You do have to think about which one's more important. Many times in terms of importance, we see a lot of people going for efficiency before going for effectiveness. Well, if you're producing a report that isn't really being used very much, if you produce it a lot faster, are you really gaining? So yes, you're eliminating some time, but maybe there's a way that we can determine that that report is either duplicative, not necessary, et cetera. So efficiency and effectiveness, I would challenge effectiveness first. Make sure that we go through and we're doing the right things, we're adding the right value, we're really working well with the data and everything else, and then look at efficiency. But they're both extremely important. Now, one thing that was missed off of here, go ahead.
I agree very much from the effectiveness standpoint, because if you start with just the efficiency, what you've got down there, with the reducing the error rates, if you focus too much just on speed and not on really being able to be effective, you actually tend to counterintuitive yourself from that standpoint, in that you end up having to go back and make corrections and make readjustments and those types of things, and then that ends up, hurting yourself in the long run as well.
Totally agree. Totally agree. And then there's one in here that wasn't even considered, which is sustainability. Really, really think that sustainability is something that, because of the dynamic nature of the environment and the change, we've got to look at how we balance efficiency, effectiveness, and sustainability. The next thing was, where are people interested in improving? And this is what topped the list. And notice on the top of the list, plan, budget, forecast, analyze, replan, rebudget. It seems like we're doing every rolling 15 minutes a new forecast. That's become a really hot point. And then close, consolidate, and report. And I think a lot of what Elizabeth focuses on in this last mile is actually solving both of those. It's the actuals and the budgets and the coming together of budget and actual, which is what makes really meaningful information that's actionable. Elizabeth, your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to bring them both together. This is certainly an area that I focus on very much so, and being able to bring them together and making that comparison to know how you're doing and put that stick in the sand. And then it also helps just from a motivation standpoint within the different individuals who are being held accountable for those budgets and those plans. And I think that that's why they continue to top the list, because those are the areas that people continue to focus on. So not that the rest of these things are not important, but that the top two, for sure, tend to be where people are looking the most.
So we dug a little deeper on this one and also found out that these are some of the most expensive processes, they're some of the more variable processes, they're some of the more subjective processes, and they're the ones most susceptible to change. So it is where the challenge has sort of gone to, or where it's gathered, and this is where we want to focus on trying to make it better. So in terms of what companies are spending, APQC looks at the quality of what the companies are doing, and they rank that in their performance, so the top performers and the bottom performers. And what struck me about this slide is the top performers, the distance between what the top performers are spending per $1,000 in revenue. Now this was 160 organizations with more than $1 billion in revenue. The difference between the top performers and the bottom performers, we're not talking 10%, we're not talking 20%, we're not talking 1x, we're talking over 5x. If you don't think there's ROI from improving your most manual, your most subjective, you know, where it all comes together processes, where you have all that effort and time going, there's a huge ROI from improving this. If you can improve this and move along that scale, you can really save a lot of time and expense. Now, I'm not sure it's always hard pocket out of pocket dollars. It can also be a lot of time that you can then be spending on value-added activities, right? Especially the close, consolidate, and report is not considered the most value-add. Imagine if you had that information sooner and better, and then were able to reinvest that time into more value-added projects and that type of stuff. So this, to me, was an amazingly stark statistic of just how much ROI is there. And then I specialize on the accounting close. And again, this is APQC material, it's copyrighted to them, etc. I didn't change a word on this slide. But for a guy who focuses on doing the accounting close, this slide probably addresses one of the biggest paradigm shifts that we need to address. People always ask, how much will it cost for us to go faster? Now, for example, I've worked with a company where we've reduced about 50% of the time of their close. We've reduced a ton of overtime in their close. It's now smooth, it's predictable, it's well managed, etc. And people ask me, so how much did that cost? It doesn't cost anything. It is a giant net cost savings. Could there be some spend initially? Absolutely. But it is a net cost savings, and the ROI and the return is very quick on the investment. And if you think about it from a different paradigm, you've already spent a ton of money. You've already have a huge spend on financial reporting, and you're waiting for this last mile. So if you actually improve this last mile, you should really be considering the leverage of what's coming back on the spend that you've already put in and all the people you have working on things. So the faster close costs less. By the way, the other paradigm shift we have is people say, if I go faster, how much less accurate? We can't go that fast. We've got to make sure it's right. Hey, the speed relationship, which we'll talk more about, is actually inverted. If you do a better close, I will guarantee you it's faster. If you do a better quality close, I'll guarantee you it's faster. So both of those paradigms flip on their ears, and it makes a huge difference. Talk about these goals for efficiency and effectiveness. We're going to be talking about how important is speed. So we always hear speed, 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 speed. I think speed is a two-edged sword. Okay? Speed can either be attained by going really fast and reckless, or speed can be attained by having better quality and better effectiveness all the way across people, process, and systems. Obviously, we advocate better quality across people, process, and systems to generate speed. So when we look at speed here, is that the number one criteria? Is that the number one objective? Because when we do all of our polling, speed drops, and the number one is accuracy. Now, what's interesting is then the discussion goes to just being those two, speed versus accuracy, accuracy versus speed. But so what we've done is we've refined it, and we've said, well, if you're looking at the processes and what you're doing, would you rather have more predictable results? I don't mean the numbers actually coming out. I'm talking about predictability. We're always going to be closed on day 8, or we're always reporting on day 24. We're going to have the right reports, and they're not going to have a bunch of issues with it. Predictability of process, predictability of getting through this. And the funny part is if you offer a CFO that he can be closed on day 6, 7, 8, or 9, or always on day 8, I challenge you that 90% of them would tell you always on day 8 rather than having a widespread. Because they build people's expectations. They have to tell the board, the CEO, everybody else when this is going to happen. So predictability comes in pretty high on the survey. Then there's manageability, right? Can we move things around? Can we see what's happening? And that one goes hand in hand with visibility. Visibility and manageability go together. If we're going really, really fast, do we want to have such limited visibility that we only see something once we run it over? And then the second side is if we see something in front of us, do we want to hear brace for impact, or do we want to hear we're going to steer around it? So going fast is important, but going so fast that you don't have visibility and you don't have manageability usually tends to lead to accidents. Accountability of process. If something goes wrong, can we tell where it went wrong? A famous accounting phrase, well, it is what it is. You know, we don't really know what happened, and it is what it is. The problem with that is that if we can't tell where something goes wrong, then it doesn't get fixed, and it's going to happen again. Maybe not next month, maybe not next quarter, but it'll come back to hit us. Compliance, where are we in terms of compliance? How about we go really, really quickly and get a material weakness? Uh-oh, that's not going to work. So we have to be cautious of compliance. How about analysis? Do we understand the numbers, or do we just churn them so quickly that when somebody points and goes, I don't understand, why is this number like this? We go, I don't know, we've been working so hard to get the numbers together, we haven't had a chance to look at them. So all of those things are important, and then the question is that the entire scale? And the answer is no, because if you ask a CFO, he also wants reduced cost. Do more with less, improve, and also reduce cost. So the answer is, can you do them all? And the answer is yes, you must do them all. A fast close is not necessarily efficient, but an effective close is absolutely faster. Okay, so is that equation reversible? No. If you just take out people from the process or take out cost and tell people to work faster, you're not instantly going to get quality. Now, I don't want to understate things here or overstate things here, but this formula, I didn't invent it. If I had invented this formula, I would own an island, I would be on the beach, it would have a nice hotel, and you'd all be invited to come over. The reality is that this is the basis of modern manufacturing today. This is the basis that says if you improve the quality of a process, I guarantee you the efficiency will improve. It will get faster, it will get better, and frankly, it'll get easier. So accuracy, predictability, manageability, visibility, accountability, compliance, and analysis. All those things that we're trying to say improve the quality of your close, focus on the quality. I guarantee you as a result, it will get faster, less expensive, and easier. There's nothing wrong with easier if it comes out of being better quality. Elizabeth, your thoughts?
Yeah, I think you layer in the people, the process, and the systems with all of these items that are listed right here, and that's your Rubik's Cube right there, being able to move all of those around, because each one of these would be different, whether or not you're talking about people, process, or the systems aspect of it, because you can apply each one of these to each one of those as well, too. So, you know, it's not an easy challenge, but it's certainly one that can be addressed by multiple different ways.
Right. So how are most people managing the close process today? Now, I'm a former accountant. I spent 10 years at PwC torturing nice folks like yourselves. I was also an assistant controller at a publicly reporting company. I've also been a director of finance at a private company. I've filed 10Ks and Qs. I've done S1s. I've done merger integration. How do we manage this process? I'm an accountant. I love, you know, systems and this, that, and the other, but if I have nothing else that I can do this with, I'm doing it with an Excel spreadsheet. And we use this Excel checklist to manage this process. And some would ask, does that make sense? Okay. I'm not telling you Excel is going to leave accounting, because you'd have to kill everybody in accounting before Excel left. Okay. After that, it peels off slowly, but it's all good. The question is, how do we manage this in other challenges? See, if I go back and I take a look back in history, for the GL, go back far enough in history, not that far, we used to do it on paper and manual. there were actually very large companies that had paper and manual. There were some small number of billion-dollar companies that did things on paper and manual. Then it went to simple spreadsheets and systems, and then it went all the way up to ERP systems like SAP, Oracle, any of the other systems. AR and revenue. In certain companies, AR and revenue, they've managed to bring it along and put it into the ERP system. In other industries, they use things like SoftTrax and RevPro. In hospital systems, they use revenue management systems. There's a lot of systems being involved. How about payroll? Payroll is something near and dear to everybody, but many, many companies use alternate systems and move their payroll along. And for example, ADP, Ceridian, Paychex, Payday, so you've got all sorts of people that for a variety of reasons are using different systems. So all of those are important financial processes. All of those have been helped out. What is that progress? Because today we could go back on any of those functions and do them on a spreadsheet. Would we do that ever? No. Right? But we could. What is that? That's process control feature functionality. That is improving process control, generally with technology. So is the accounting close and financial reporting an important financial process? Well, surely we can tell by the way we manage it. So the question is, why have we not done something here? And there's a whole variety of answers. Many times people don't know, they don't understand the payback, they don't understand where to get started, they don't understand how to finish, it's constantly changing. I get it. But the question is, does it make sense to do something there? And I can't answer that for you. I can't answer that for you blanket-wise, yes, it always makes sense to do this, that, or the other. What it makes sense is to look at it, to determine if there's something that could improve this, and in which pieces. To just sit there and assume that Excel checklist is the way to go, I don't think that's the answer these days. So when we go through, we have a couple other questions that come up. So one is, do people understand the paradigm that if you go faster from better accuracy, that's actually going to save you time and money? Two is, you ask them the question, do you have time to improve the close? And generally the answer is, oh, we're too busy. What are you too busy doing? Oh, we're closing. Okay, when you get closed, well, then I got to catch up on my day job. Yes, I know all of you guys moonlight and actually have day jobs outside the close. You actually do something else. You close, and then you go catch up on your day job, and just when you're caught up on your day job, right back to the close, right? That's the accounting cycle. Every accounting department, let me see, I'm going to describe everybody's accounting department all at the same time. Understaffed, overworked, list of projects longer than my arm, right? You're all in the same place. You're, quote unquote, you're not revenue generating, you're not this, that, and the other. IT puts you at the bottom of the list. You know, we've got a lot of things. So do you have time? Well, here's the most amazing part of this answer, is you don't have time not to improve the close. The close is one of the single largest sucks of time out of your department. This is one of the largest identifiable activities that you do, and it's also one of the most improvable. You can take a lot of effort out of the close. Improving saves time. People always ask me, how much time will it take to improve? It won't take time. You will save time. So then there's the famous question, when should we start? And generally that answer is something like next month, next quarter, next year. And really the translation of that answer is never. You're either going to start now or you're going to put it off. And this issue has been put off over and over and over. It's never going to be the hottest fire. There's a really curious answer to why this will never be the hottest fire. None of you has ever gone to a CFO and said, you know what, I don't know, July, I'm busy. Why don't we just do 2 closes in August? It's never going to happen. You are a bunch of dedicated individuals that probably have never, ever in your career missed a close. The CFO knows that no matter what happens, the finance department is going to come with the close. And if you guys are always going to deliver, then you know what? We should focus on revenue generating activities. If you guys are always going to deliver, hey, there's other priorities. Hey, we got to do this. I'm not advocating that you go on strike or that you not deliver or anything like that. Nobody's suggesting that. What I'm suggesting is that unless you raise the priority, nobody's going to raise that priority for you. So you as a finance team need to look at this and say, no, we're going to improve it because we want to make things better in our department. because nobody's ever going to put this on a corporate priority list. This is going to be an internally driven project, usually by the people who do it. Okay, the CFO is already getting his close. So it's going to be the people involved doing it that are going to get motivated and say, you know what, we're tired of this. We've got to figure out a way of making this better, and that's when you get started. So IOMA did a survey, assigning responsibilities. They hit a lot of the points. Assign responsibilities for resolving discrepancies before they happen, clear accountability, closing schedule, enforce deadlines, clear and regular communications, close performance metrics, continuously improve the process. I'm going to address the top one. Why does this process need to continuously improve? And the answer, I think, is pretty self-evident. It's because it's constantly changing. So this is a great survey. It hasn't been refreshed for a while by IOMA. It is, I believe, about $500. It's got some good insight. And again, when you start looking at the close and really lining it up, a lot of these insights marry up with what we're telling you today, and we can go through there. So what we do is that we look at how do you get a framework for improving this? How do you take it and say, well, we should have a methodology for improving? And it should probably line up with that continuous improvement. Then we should leverage technology, because technology is going to be able to help you. Most any solution to any challenge these days involves some technology, either refining it, extending it, adding pieces to it, those types of things. Best practices. Here's where I say you have to be careful. I don't think best practices come from outside the organization. I think they come from inside the organization. I think it's being able to work with your people, helping them understand that they have very good best practices, but you're trying to make them better. I get a lot of people who look at me and say, well, the close isn't broken. No, it's not broken. Totally agree with you. I don't particularly like telling people that they're broken or challenged or anything. No. What it can be is better. And you have to ask yourself, do we want to make this better? But every single one of you does good work already. And the question is, can we make it better? And then you put together focus, resources, and strategy. And frankly, the top of that pyramid, the focus, resources, and strategy, is what I think myself and Elizabeth are talking about here as we go further into this presentation, is how do you put something around this, and where do you start, and where do you line up? And so we're going to talk to you about project plans and certain other things. We're going to get down there. I threw in a slide on the methodology because I think there's some very good methodologies out there, and just a couple key points on those. This one actually comes from Lean Six Sigma. If you're going to improve the process, you need to make sure that you include your constituency, the people who use the financials and also the people who do the process. We'll talk about process improvement, teamwork, and we're going to leave the metrics out. Who are the customers? What do they value? You're trying to get to better quality in your close, and the users of the financial statements want it to be more accurate, more complete, more visible, more manageable, more compliant, no surprises, and the preparers want it easier, better, and less stressful. So we look at all this together and say, if you're going to address the close, you've got to make sure that the people who are using the end product are happy with the process changes, and the people who do it. If you don't get those two constituencies, it's not going to work. Overall process leads to good speed. When we ask people about continuous improvement, we ask them, why do you do things this way? We've always done it that way. We've got to get away from that. We've got to be able to make incremental process improvements and do continuous improvement and keep on continually improving. Teamwork. Teamwork is a very large leverage point. We talked about the people. Again, if you think about this, people, process, and system, this is just another way of saying that. Again, we go back to where are all the different places? Where are all the different places and stuff? And again, this was the chart we had put up before of all the different, just look at in an SAP environment, including Blackline, which is a reconciliation, Redwood scheduling, which is a Redwood scheduler. There's a place for everything in different environments, and again, you've still got to keep track of the grout lines and everything else, so you've also got to think about workflow and collaboration, content management, metrics, visibility, and then how easy is it to deal with all of this stuff in there. So there's a lot when you look at just the technology. We're going to keep going a little bit further because what we want to get to is, all right, so that focus, resources, and strategy. SVA, Silicon Valley Accountants, put together a white paper, and this white paper had to do with getting a strategic plan in place, evaluating your existing technology, and adopting a culture of continuous improvement. Those are the 3 points that we're going to carry a little further here. And along those same lines, SAP talks about a financial close action plan. So Elizabeth, why don't you take us a quick tour through this, and I know we're going to go a little deeper, so give me a quick overview and then we'll move down.
Right. So the question is, what do I do? Where do I start? It's great that you're telling me all this, but what's the action plan and where am I hoping to get to? And I think all of the things that are up here, that are listed here, are things that have been mentioned beforehand. And then this circle that's listed over here is that you've got all your different stakeholders. Now, stakeholders aren't only your shareholders, so it's not only about your regulatory reporting, but it's about the different managers and different divisions and all of the different local accounting, corporate accounting, all these different people, and getting them all aligned into this perfect little circle area isn't always that easy. So the question is, where do I start? And we'll get into that here in just a second.
Right, and I would imagine that SAP, I know that SBA will help you try and get to those. So let's go to this one where we start talking about getting your vision, getting that first stage and trying to figure out where do we go to. Elizabeth?
Yep. So we've got 4 different stages that we're going to walk through here. It's going to be vision, quick wins, big wins, and continuous improvement. So let's start here with the first one, which is going to be the vision. So perform your as-is view, define your vision and benefits, and obtaining the executive sponsorship. And to what Gabe was saying beforehand, that figuring out what the different visions are, you can do that through benchmarks, internal and external. Both of those are key things to look at. But you need to look at exactly what you're trying to do and where you're trying to get to. What gets measured gets managed, right, is part of that balanced scorecard methodology aspect of it. And in order to really measure it, you need to manage it and say, where am I trying to get to?
Right, and then from our side, we would say remember the timing. You got to be able to do this in between the closes as you go doing your implementation. Your people are a critical ingredient. Every time that an implementation goes weird, it's not because the software changed. It's because the people who are putting it in under-resourced, the people are, things are changed on them. They're trying to do their day job, their close, and do implementation. So think about that. And the goal is to have a positive experience. If people have a positive experience with continuous improvement, they're going to keep doing it and keep doing it. So step 2 is those quick wins. Elizabeth?
And so the quick wins here, we've got a couple listed here. I think we've mentioned it a couple times here that it's not one size fits all. There is no silver bullet. So these are just some examples. We talked about the right first time closing, XPR publishing. Each of these might be a quick win for you. So you think about the low-hanging fruit and figure out what it is that you can pull off of that. Peer-to-peer intercompany reconciliation might be a huge problem at your organization. So this is just an example, but you need to look at it for your organization. What are the quick wins? What can I accomplish quickly to be able to produce those results?
Right. For us, what it is we like doing things and keep doing incremental monthly improvements. So this would be along one vector where we would be working on one pilot sample timeline, and this is the way it kind of rolls out. And what we learn at the beginning, we leverage at the next one, and then leverage at the next one, and then leverage at the next one. So this is something when you're doing continuous improvement, you not only want to do improvement like in consolidations over time, but you also want to move slowly to more sections and that stuff. So Elizabeth, we come back to the big wins. Now we've cleared up some stuff. We've got some early wins. We've built some momentums. Everybody's happy. We're going forward. Now it's time for some of those big wins.
Yeah, so we got the big ones here. One's the one right in the middle, implementing a consolidation application, whether or not it's an ERP or a standalone or whatever it is, something that's integrated. That can be a big undertaking. Disclosure reporting, different entity close management as well. These are different big wins. Even an ERP might be an option to put in here that could be a big win. And you see the things down the side there on the left is also you've got to keep consistent master data as well as your internal controls and those processes. So the big wins are going to vary again depending on the organization, but that's where you're going to get the most value out of it.
And for us, I think summing it up, smaller, faster wins in the beginning, build momentum. Don't start off with those super large, we're going to go impale ourselves on the largest, on the largest dragon available. Link the benefits from those smaller wins so that they can help you really, build a bigger win sometimes from smaller wins. And then my last one is scope will creep, plan on it. And I have a unique way of explaining this one. It's called, honey, we're only going to change the countertops. For any of you who own homes, you know what that means. That means run and hide your credit card. All right, so in an overall, then we have to take a look at how did what we did work out and do a post-project review and keep on putting that continuous improvement. So although this kind of lines up that way, you get a vision, you do some quick wins, you might do a big win, you do a post-project review, you go back and alter the vision. Some more quick wins, maybe another big win, go back and alter the vision. keep going around and around. That's continuous improvement. And so you can take this and keep building more and building more. Rome is not going to get built in a day. Your close and your financial reporting aren't going to get changed in a day. But our biggest message to you is get some progress. Start making some progress, get some education, line up a plan, and start moving forward. Back to that close action plan. So, Elizabeth, do you folks help people out with these things?
Oh yeah, absolutely. From a software standpoint, I mean, we work together anywhere where you configure, you can automate, you can standardize, you can centralize, and then chunk that out into the different action plan that we just looked at as well too. This is the same slide we had right in the beginning, just to bring it all together in the end. You know, these are all the value statements and the things that you want to be able to bring your organization. And so as the people and the process and the systems, yes, SAP is a system company, but we very much understand that it's not only the systems aspect, but the people and the process that work with it.
So for FDI in September 2013, we put together an article on how to safely race to an optimized financial close. This is available at the SVA website, www.svacpa.com. I think it's a very nice article, and it kind of covers the whole concept from sort of the speed and overview perspective. I'd really like to thank everybody here on behalf of Elizabeth and myself. We'd really like to thank you very much. And we're going to turn it over to questions and answers, which I believe are coming up here shortly. So again, just so that you see, there's a Twitter handle for Elizabeth. There's our LinkedIn profiles. You can always send me an email at gabez@svacpa.com or Elizabeth on Twitter at Elizabeth E. Milne in Twitter. So Q&A.
Thank you very much, Gabe and Elizabeth, for that really compelling content. Being mindful of time, we'll only have time for a few questions. We encourage you to still ask your questions via the questions area, and we'll follow up with our speakers with any questions that we did not get to. First question I'll direct your way, Gabe. Someone received a mandate from their CFO to take the close down from 5 to 3 days, but they'd also like to optimize it and not shorten it. What advice would you give them to get started?
So again, to get started, first would be let's think about becoming a little more educated on where the gains are, and then think about the drive and improve the quality. Again, one of those sort of strategic action plans, whichever way you want to refer to it, get some people out who've worked on this before to give you, frankly, some free advice on what can be done. There's nothing wrong with asking somebody to come out and saying, hey, we could use a little education on what are the possibilities, where do we have the issues, and how would you help us, what would you tell us are some good first steps to take? I don't think many people, we don't, this is sort of a newer field, if you want. There's a lot of change and a lot of availability with the technology and what's being done with process and people. Just get some more information. Read that article. Call either SAP or myself and ask somebody to come out and talk to you about what they've seen, what they've done, what other people have done. We're more than happy to do that.
I would agree, absolutely. I mean, look at what your as-is process is, look at where your bottlenecks are, and also ask yourself why you're doing things. Because Gabe mentioned it in one of his slides, is that we've always done it that way. It seems to be an acceptable answer. But, really question that, I would say, and figure out why you're doing it and address those bottlenecks.
And I think there's also something where people believe that they shouldn't ask for help. Okay, I absolutely ask for help. You can get the initial help with having people come out and give you an idea, and it's fine. I think that a lot of departments want to do this somehow all by themselves. I'm not exactly sure where that comes from, but there's plenty of people out there who've got some information that can at least get you started. I'm sorry, Ernie, go ahead.
Oh, great. Thank you very much. Be mindful of our time. We're going to go ahead and close our Q&A session. Again, any unanswered questions, we'll coordinate with our speakers and get those answers. A huge thank you to Gabe and Elizabeth for their time and insights. They're clearly thought leaders on their field and excellent source of information on today's topics. Noting in the post-webinar survey, you'll be asked to take right after the webinar concludes. You'll have the opportunity to express your interest in being connected with today's speakers with just a few mouse clicks. We hope to have the opportunity to have Gabe and Elizabeth on future webinars to address these topics in more detail as well. A big thank you to today's sponsor, SAP, whose commitment to thought leadership helps us make this event possible. And finally, a big thank you to the audience for your valuable time. We hope to see you soon in another Performative webinar or online at www.performative.com. Thank you very much, everyone. Make the rest of your day great.